Hi there, this is Michelle. Today we are going to be making SVG files that we can cut on our Cricut using only the Sure Cuts a Lot software and the shapes that you already have in the shapes library of that program. So the file that we will be making today is this Christmas tree located on the right. And this Christmas tree is made up of nothing more than 4 rounded triangles, a rectangle, and a star on the top. Easy, piece of cake. But if you can do that with a little bit of imagination and creativity, you can use this basic shapes library, either the basic shapes or many of the other shapes available, to create many types of files, all within the Sure Cuts a Lot software, and without a base picture or file to trace. So we're going to start with that Christmas tree. Like I said, it had 4 of the rounded triangles from the basic shapes. So we're going to click in 1, 2, 3, 4, and I just went to my basic shapes library, selected basic shapes, and clicked on that 4 times. Now I'm going to kind of move these triangles around on the mat so I have them to work with. If I move the cursor over and get the T with the arrows, that means that I can move it when I click. If any shape other than that is on it, like right now, I don't have that, I have the arrow, it won't move. It'll stretch or do something else. So, if you noticed when we looked at that picture, the triangle on the bottom is the biggest and the triangle on the top is the smallest. Makes sense. So we're going to start at the top and we're going to work our way down. So this first triangle will be the top. Now the second triangle, we need to make a little bigger than that. So we're just going to stretch it to make it a little bigger, but we don't want to change the proportions of our basic shape. We simply want to change the size. Now to do that, over in the Properties window, check the Keep Proportions box, and that won't let you stretch the shape or change the shape at all, only the size. So see, regardless of how much I stretch it, it won't stretch either horizontally or vertically. It will only resize. So we're going to make that a touch bigger than the one below, or above, excuse me. And then since we're making that kind of short, fat Christmas tree, we are going to put the point, the top point of the triangle, fairly into or intersecting with the first one. Now I'm not concerned where I'm situating it horizontally because we are going to align those when we're all done. What I'm focusing on is where it is vertically or up and down. Okay, so let's do the same to this one. And you know what, I want to move that down just a little bit. And what I'm focusing on to see what my tree is going to look like is the outline. These inside lines are going to go away when we union these shapes together. Once again, check the Keep Proportions box, make it a little bigger than the one above it. And really you can make it whatever size you want because it's your tree. And depending upon how big you make the triangles and how far up and down you place them, it will give your tree an entirely different look. Focusing on that outside outline. And the last one. And just to show you, if I don't check that Keep Proportions box, what can happen is the shape of the triangle itself can change. If I do something that I don't like, I can go under the Edit menu up here and just hit Undo. And it will undo the last action. You can also accomplish that same thing by hitting Control-Z on your keyboard. That also means undo. So checking that Keep Proportions box, we're going to resize our bottom triangle. We're going to situate it up there. That's a little big. And I think I like the way that that general outline looks on the outside. So now what I want to do is I want to get a rectangle for my trunk. And the rectangle is right here. I'm going to click on that. And this one, I'm not going to keep the proportions because I do want to actually change the shape of it a little bit because this is kind of my short, fat tree. I kind of want a short, fat trunk on it. I like the way that looks. Maybe move it down just a little. There we go. And I moved it just now by using the up and down pads on the keyboard. You see that moves it around quite a bit. If I want to move it just a little bit, these nudge buttons in the properties box are awesome. I can just push the nudge button and see how it just pushes it up slightly, or I can nudge it down just slightly. That allows you more ease and flexibility when you're trying to move those pieces around on your mat, but don't want the big changes that you get with either using the up and down on your keyboard or just picking it up with your mouse and moving it. Now what I'm going to do is I am going to select all of the objects that are there. Now because these are the only objects on my mat, I can go under File and do, or actually under Edit and do Select All, and that will select them all. But what if I had another shape over here that I didn't want to select as well? Select All would include that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my mouse and I'm going to put it to the upper left of the objects that I'm selecting. I'm going to push down on the left mouse button and drag it down so I'm drawing a box around that object. That will then select every object within the confines of that box. So after I do that, I am going to horizontally align them on the map to the center. And over in the properties box, you see H align. That means horizontally align. That is going to take each one of those objects and center it on the mat. And there it is, centered horizontally on the mat. And now I can pick it up and move it over. And now each one of those objects is centered with each other. Now if I go under the Path menu to Union, I have now welded those shapes or union them together so I have the shape of my Christmas tree. We go under Cutter, Preview All to see what it'll look like when we cut it. And there we have a very nice Christmas tree that we made very simply from scratch in Sure Cuts a Lot that you can call your own. Now, quickly, there is one more file that was here, and that is this tall, thin tree that actually had some embellishments on it. And those embellishments are nothing more than swirls from the Basic Shapes library. And let's pick one that'll work kind of nice. Check the Keep Proportions box. Resize it so that it's a good size. Move it in there. Let's get another one. You can either use the same ones or different ones. Let's resize that one. I didn't keep the proportions that time, but that's okay. And you know, this little handle in the upper right lets me rotate it. So I kind of want it to go that way. So there we have that kind of looking like tinsel, and let's just do one more quickly. Let's do that one. It's kind of cool. Resize it. We're not going to keep the proportions, though we want it to kind of look long and skinny and maybe a little funky, but that's up to you. And let's have it go that way. I'm going to pick it up and move it. You know what? I like it this way better. See, the great thing is it's entirely up to you what you want your ultimate creation to look like. So let's select them all. We want to make sure they're on the same layer so they all cut at the same time. So we are going to group them. So now they're all part of the same group. They'll turn the same color, so the Cricut will cut them all at the same time. And now let's ungroup them. And I want to select both the Christmas tree and the top swirl. And then I want to go Path Exclude. And that will exclude that. Now if I select this, the Christmas tree in the middle, I can do Path Exclude. It'll exclude that. And if I select the bottom swirl in the Christmas tree and do Path Exclude, it'll exclude that. Now when I go to my preview, it should preview with the objects cut out. And that is what the exclude does. So really, when you do the exclude, all you're telling it is that in your preview, it'll know that those shapes are going to be cut out. If we simply left it the same way it was, let's undo that last exclude that we did and then hit the preview, it would show the two as being excluded or cut out, but not the third. But that third is still there and it will still cut. So whether you go through the process of actually excluding them or not is really only relevant as to what your preview is going to look like. And it's always a good idea to do a preview before you cut so you know what your cut's going to look like. But unless your inside shapes are excluded, they will not show up in your preview screen. And then to finish this file off, I think I put a star on the top. So going back to the basic shapes, we'll put a star there. We will keep the proportions. Let's resize it so that it's a nice size for our tree. Put it on top. We're going to select all because once again we want to horizontally align that star. And let's group everything so it's all one object. Move it back. And there we have it. That is kind of a combination of these two trees that you can now make yourself using your Sure Cuts A Lot software. Now that we have our file complete, if we want to save this as an SVG file instead of a SCUT file, we can go under our File menu and go to Export. When actually I think the first thing we need to do is select our object. Go to Export, and it'll bring up this Save As box. We are going to save it in the file called Holidays. Just choose a place that you'd like to save it on your drive, the same way you do with every file. We're going to save it as a SVG file. That's one of our options. We could also save this as a bitmap or a PNG file, but we're going to save it as an SVG, and then we're going to name it. I'm going to call it Tree. And then I'm going to put the .svg extension on it. The version of SCAL software that I'm using is 2.28, and there seems to be a bug in that software where it will not automatically attach the SVG extension to it. Now that's an easy fix. It's probably already fixed in one of the newest releases, but I'm having really good luck with 2.28, and some people aren't, so I'm sticking with it for now. So if you're using 2.28, or if you try to export an SVG in your Sure Cuts A Lot and it doesn't recognize it as an SVG file, just add that .svg to the end and that'll do it for you. We'll hit the Save button. Okay, let's go ahead and get rid of this so that I can demonstrate. Now we have an SVG that we can import into our Sure Cuts A Lot cutting program. And the nice thing about SVG files is they're more universal files as opposed to the SCUT files. You can only cut them in Sure Cuts A Lot, and Sure Cuts A Lot is the only program that can read them and open them, as opposed to the SVG files can be opened in Inkscape, manipulated in Inkscape, and recognized by other programs. So that's what I have for you today. Use your imagination and a little creativity and look at those basic shapes. Look at all of the shapes that you have available to you in your Sure Cuts A Lot and decide and figure out what fun things you can make. How about some stick figures? This software would make great stick figures using rectangles, circles, and some of the swirls for hair. You could have a great time. So using this basic information, see what you can come up with. Happy cutting and have a great day.